On today's show, the Nets nearly blow a 20-point lead against the Bulls, but Michael Porter Jr. steps up and saves the day. I'll offer my top takeaways from a wild game at Barclays Center on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping Brooklyn's 112-109 win over the Chicago Bulls on Friday at Barclays Center. And this was a wild game, and this was a game for the Nets. It looked like they had it in hand for the overwhelming majority for three quarters, and then it was nearly a collapse of epic proportions down the stretch. I mean, the Nets were dominating the Bulls in this game. They were up 17 at the half. They only allowed 40 points in the first half, and they were up by 20 early in the fourth quarter against a Bulls team that looked completely out of sorts for most of the game. But then the Nets offense stalled. They were 7 of 23 with 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter, and the Bulls got hot from three. They hit 6 threes in the fourth, and before you know it, it's a 1-point game. It's a 2-point game down the stretch, and the Nets had the ball with like 20 seconds left, and they were down, or they were up by 1, and then Drake Powell actually got the ball, tried to drive, got stripped. The Bulls go the other way. They scored to go up 1 with 11 seconds remaining, so the Nets need a bucket to save this game. And Michael Porter Jr., he steps up and saves the day. Obviously, the Nets are going to call his number in that spot. The Nets run a simple pin down for him. The Bulls switch it. Kobe White, for some reason, is playing off of him and giving him some space, and MPJ takes the space. He drives downhill. He gets to the bucket. He lays it in. And then Drake Powell makes up for his turnover by stealing the inbounds pass on the ensuing possession to win the game. And, man, for like a Bulls team that is obviously not a good basketball team, what a disastrous stretch that was, because they, battle all the way back to come back from this 20-point deficit. They get really hot from three. They get some lucky bounces. And then you completely botch a defensive possession by giving Michael Porter Jr. pretty much a free lane to the basket against a guy who's 6 inches shorter than him, or whatever Kobe White is. And then on the inbounds, they're down 1 with 5 seconds remaining. They try to inbound the ball. They can't. So Billy Donovan calls timeout. They come out of the timeout, and then they turn it over out of the timeout. Drake Powell makes a great play, and he's playing on the inbounder, and he tips it, has active hands. He has that 7-foot wingspan. He gets a tip. The Nets go the other way. They hit a couple free throws, and the game is over. So disastrous stretch for the Bulls there, but this was, you talk about a fourth quarter collapse from the Nets, or a potential or close fourth quarter collapse, and this has been a theme in recent games. The Nets have just not been able to generate offense in the fourth quarters of their recent losses. You talk about that loss to the Grizzlies. You talk about the loss to the Mavericks. You talk about the loss to the Pelicans. They've just stalled during the fourth quarter, and that shouldn't be that surprising given some of the guys that they have out there. They're playing a ton of rookies, but tonight, Michael Porter Jr. and Noah Clowney, those guys stepped up and made shots. But outside of that, as I said, it shouldn't be that surprising. The Nets are struggling offensively like this down the stretch. This is frankly what I assumed that it was going to look like much more often, earlier in the season with all the rookies that the Nets are playing, because they are playing a lot of rookies. Like in this game, the rookies are playing heavy minutes, all 4 of them that are active: Diego Diome, Nolan Traore, Danny Wolf, Drake Powell. And 2 of those guys are on the court together for most of the game. And then the Nets' most talented offensive player, Cam Thomas, or most talented one-on-one shot creator, he just looked checked out, and he just isn't even playing down the stretch of these games. He was really bad offensively tonight. He was 3 of 13 from the field, and the Nets 100% blow this lead if MPJ doesn't step up like a star and save them. And this was a strange MPJ game, because you look at the first half, I thought that MPJ was taking some just ludicrous shots in the first half. And I know that he always does that, but I thought that it was at a different level tonight. He had 8 points on 3 of 7 shooting in the first half. And as I said, the shot selection was even more ridiculous than usual. I mean, he took a few shots that, like, even by MPJ standards, you're kind of like, whoa, what was that? And it was a little bit of a carryover from the New Orleans game, because he didn't seem that engaged during the first half of this one. He wasn't really that engaged as a cutter. Like we've seen MPJ when he's at his best, he's getting those slips to the basket. He's sealing guys in the paint and getting those high-low actions. He's then using that leverage to curl off of screens and get open and do some of that stuff. And I just didn't think that he was as active off the ball, as engaged. Like he's coming off these pin downs and some things along those lines in the first half, but just the off-ball intensity didn't seem like it was at the same level that it has been when he had been playing so well. But then he comes out and he turns it on in the second half, and especially down the stretch of this game when the Nets just needed someone to save them. He had 18 points on 6 of 10 shooting from the field and 3 of 5 from 3 in the second half. And that's what a star player or a lead option is supposed to be able to do. When things are unraveling and everything looks like it's turning into a disaster and you need someone to step up and save you, those are the guys that can heed that call. And while Michael Porter Jr., he didn't look great early in this game, he didn't look that engaged. When the Nets needed him to flip the switch, he did it, and he got them the win. And it wasn't just Michael Porter Jr. Noah Clowney, I thought, also looked really good in this game. He had 23 points, 11 rebounds, which is really nice to see because Noah, obviously the rebounding numbers weren't there at the beginning of the year, but 23 points, 11 rebounds, 7 of 17 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. And Noah also hit a couple of really big threes down the stretch of this game. And Noah is not lacking confidence. And I talked to Jordy Fernandez about it after the game, and that was the main thing that Jordy kept pointing to, was that Noah is going to shoot no matter what. And that's a message that is almost like this Nets coaching staff and this Nets front office has programmed into Noah's brain at this point. If you're open, put it up. It doesn't matter how many shots you've missed. You could miss 10 shots in a row. You're putting that 11th one up. And that, I think that this recent Noah stretch has really exemplified that, because we know that Noah had a really bad shooting stretch. I mean, he had a recent stretch of like 9 or 10 games where he was shooting like 19% from 3, but yet he continues to shoot. He continues to put them up, and he continues to drive and try to make things happen from 2. I mean, he struggled from 2 from an efficiency standpoint in this game, but he got up 10 2-point field goals, which was nice to see. I mean, Noah, despite like the shooting, that's going to be a big thing for him because, he shoots at a very high rate. Obviously, he's not like the twitchiest ball handler or the best advantage creator on his own. And if he doesn't shoot well, teams are going to start going under screens more. They're going to start giving him some more space. But the thing that we know about Noah, no matter what, when he gets that space, he's shooting it. And despite the recent 3-point struggles, he has been able to get downhill, and he has been able to try to force the issue and create space on drives, discards, bumps, and things along those lines. And I think that it was a really nice, performance in terms of the willingness to just kind of work through those struggles and be confident and let it fly offensively tonight. And then also, as I said, 11 rebounds. I think he was pretty active on defense. I think it was just a good all-around performance for Noah Clowney. And if you're talking about activity, the main guy that you got to highlight in this game is Nick Claxton, who came out in this one at his season-high 14 rebounds to go with 7 points, 5 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. I thought that this was a really active Nick Claxton game. I thought that he made a noticeable impact despite only taking 5 shots. He was 3 of 5 from the field. Wasn't that involved offensively as a scorer, but the rebounding obviously has been a criticism of Nick Claxton and of the Nets as a whole, with Nick Claxton as their starting center. And tonight, 14 rebounds. I thought that he made a difference defensively, especially in the beginning of the game. And in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter, the Bulls just started hitting 3-point shots. And the Nets had 6 or 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter, and that really bled into their defense. So I don't put the defensive struggles down the stretch on Nick Claxton. I think that he had a really nice all-around game. But also, we had 4 Nets rookies who played heavy minutes in this game. Some struggled, some played really well. Who was that? How did it go? What should fans be looking for from each of these guys moving forward into another matchup with the Bulls on Sunday? I'll get into all that when I close out this bonus episode of Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, the season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert now. Those late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you show up prepared, snacks, cups, even a phone charger for the friend who's always at 2%. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Guys, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, I become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the game starts and right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, recapping Brooklyn's 112-109 win over the Chicago Bulls, a game where they nearly blew a 20-point fourth quarter lead, and they had a lot of rookies playing down the stretch, and a lot of rookies continue to get experience in moments like this where, the arena's starting to get tense. Another team is making a run. They're meaningful fourth quarter minutes. And overall, regardless if it goes well or if it goes poorly, that is a positive for these rookies. And this was an interesting game because it was kind of the reverse. We saw in the New Orleans game, Yegor Dioman and Drake Powell started alongside one another, and they were, they played probably their best complementary game of the season between those two. So those guys played really well. And then Nolan Traore and Danny Wolf had a quieter game. And it was really the reverse in this one. Nolan Traore, he struggled from the field shooting the ball, but I think he did some really good things. And then Danny Wolf had a really good game. I'll get to both of those guys. But starting quickly on Yegor and Drake, it was just a quiet game for those two. Like, you look at it, the shots weren't falling. I mean, if you start with Yegor, the shots weren't falling, but he wasn't that involved, and he didn't really play that much because he was struggling so much. He played 19 minutes, but he had 5 points, no rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover. It was 1 of 4 from 3. Didn't take any 2-point attempts. And this is the thing with Yegor. Like I've highlighted, I think that he's had a very encouraging, very high level start to the season relative to what expectations were for him, but that has obviously been mostly tied to his 3-point efficiency. And there are going to be nights where the 3-point shot isn't falling, and then you're still going to need to try to make an impact. And Jordi Fernandez said after the game that he thinks that Yegor needs to try to be more physical. He needs to try to force the issue a little bit more offensively and defensively. And this is a game where Yegor has these games. Like, he has the games where he's really hot. He's, making things happen. He has some playmaking, but he's mostly hitting a lot of 3-point shots. And in a game like this where the 3-point looks aren't there, the defense is pressing up on you a little bit more, you need to still try to be aggressive and still try to force the issue. And that is difficult for Yegor, given the limitations that he has as a ball handler, as a self-creator. He just didn't seem like he was in a rhythm. But at a certain point, you're going to want to see, you shouldn't go through a game taking no 2-point field goals. That should just never happen. So you're going to want to see, Yegor start to get a little bit more active and a little bit, more serious forcing the issue. And he's done that in certain games. And for me, it's just trying it. Like I've said, that's been my message with Yegor in terms of the driving and the 2-point field goals. And he can't always do that because he's getting pressured on the ball. And sometimes he's just not going to be able to break loose because that's not his forte right now. But still, I think that you need to try to press the issue and you need to try to work downhill. And even if it looks ugly, which is going to look ugly a lot of the times, you just got to keep doing it. You got to try it, because if you don't try it, you're not going to get any better in terms of the driving ability and in terms of the 2-point stuff. So it was a quiet game from Yegor, also a quiet game from Drake. Drake had 3 points, no rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 1 of 4, 1 of 7 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. So we obviously struggled. That's going to happen. Drake, the 3-point shot wasn't falling tonight. He had some looks from 2 that didn't go down. But I do think that it was a really nice sign that Drake turned the ball over, which could have been a game-losing play. And then Jordi Fernandez sees him and says, we're going to put you on the ball on the inbound because you're one of the most athletic players. We have the most athletic player we have. You have the 7-foot wingspan. And, Drake does a great job. He's on that inbounds pass. He's active. He's jumping up in the air. He has a 7-foot wingspan, and he gets a tip and a game-sealing play. That was a really big deal for him. So, I'm not going to go crazy over one poor game from Yegor and Drake. I do think that it's interesting that Drake started again, because Drake had started a couple of games, but that was when guys were out. These last couple games, the game against New Orleans, Terrence was healthy. Most of the team is healthy, and Drake still started. And then I asked Jordi about it before the game, and Jordi said that he's been really pleased with the way that Drake had played in the previous 2 starts, and that he was going to need to continue to produce and need to continue to be about the right things in order to continue to get that opportunity. So the insinuation was that Drake is going to be the starter. He started again in this game, and it seems like the second half of the season is approaching. It seems like Drake is going to be the starter. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. Like Jordy was sure to, emphasize that it's not guaranteed, but it seems like the Nets are going to give Drake an extended look as a starter, which is exciting and which is encouraging, which I know a lot of fans have been clamoring for. But closing it out, talking about Danny Wolf and Nolan Troy, because they were the most impactful rookies for the Nets tonight. Jordy actually closed this game with Nolan Troy over Yegor Dioman. And Nolan, I think that he did have a good game, even though he struggled from the field. He had 8 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 turnovers. So that's really nice to see. He was 2 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. So, Nolan's going to struggle scoring from the field because he's so, slight, so small. He doesn't really have like an area of the court that he can score from comfortably because he's small, obviously. He's a 19-year-old kid with a slight frame, and he's not a very high-level, like, three-point shooter, mid-range shooter. Like, the floater's been okay, but, like, there's just a lot that he needs to work on in terms of how he operates and how he, kind of probes and gets into the lane. And a lot of that is going to have to do with adding strength. But tonight, I thought that the playmaking was on full display. He hit 2 of 4 from 3. That was nice to see. Nolan has been struggling in a big way from 3. I think he was, 5 of 36 over his last 8 games or something like that before this, but 2 of 4 there. And then, as I said, 7 assists and 2 turnovers. And you're seeing some of the playmaking flashes from Nolan, like skip passes. I'm going to start calling this kid skip pass Traore or something like that, because he is really good at finding these skip passes. It's something that I've said, but he hit it a few again tonight. He had some nice drives to the rim where he kind of like Nash dribbled it and went under the basket and was able to find some guys in the corner. So I think a good playmaking game from Nolan. He's going to struggle from the field. I think that's just going to be a story for the rest of the season. But seeing him kind of improve as a decision maker and kind of start to find a rhythm as a playmaker in these few games has been encouraging. And last thing, closing it out, Danny Wolf, I thought, had one of his better games of his recent, this recent stretch that he's been struggling. He had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, no turnovers, 5 of 8 from the field, and 3 of 4 from 3. So I thought really nice performance from Danny Wolf. I thought that he was very impactful during his minutes. And I think that you see, he's playing in that second unit with Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas really struggled in this one. He was 3 of 13, but Danny did get some on-ball opportunities, and you see in the on-ball opportunities, you see some of the flashes. He had a rep today where he ran kind of big pick and roll with Day'Ron Sharpe. He kind of dribbled to the right. It's smooth, just getting into the lane. Lob pass, Day'Ron lays in. He can do that kind of stuff at 7 foot. He had some other plays where he was getting, into the paint. He missed a couple of layups I thought that he could have converted on, but he made a couple also. So he was doing some stuff on the ball, and then most importantly, he hit the shots from 3. And I think that that's going to be a really big deal, maybe the biggest deal for Danny. He was 3 of 4 from 3 in this game, and you saw the biggest impact that he made, right when he started to get his NBA opportunity, was that he was really hot from 3, and then he had cooled off from 3 and struggled to make an impact. And Danny's an interesting player because he obviously does all of these things on the ball that make him really special. He can handle in the pick and roll. He can be somewhat of a self-creator, but it was kind of the catch-22 of him coming into the draft, was that you don't know, this funky style that he plays as a 7-foot ball handler who's not really that athletic, is mostly a below the rim player. How is that going to play at the NBA level? Is he going to warrant having all of those on-ball opportunities given the, skill set that he has? And the answer is probably no. He can do it in stretches, but that's why the 3-point shooting is going to be so big for him, because in order to be playable, he's going to need to be able to shoot from 3, because he's going to be a complimentary guy. He's not going to be a guy who's coming in rocking a 20, 30% usage. That's just not going to be who he is. I think he can do a lot of stuff really well, but with his athletic limitations, he's not going to be dynamic enough to warrant just having the ball in his hands all the time. So he can do some of that, but because I think that he's only really going to be able to do that some of the time, the other times, you're going to need to be able to be a shooter and space the floor. And that's why the Nets have been playing him a lot on the wing, probably, along with them having, Nick Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe and Noah Clowney and Michael Porter Jr. in a crowded front court. But if Danny can shoot well from 3, it's going to open up a lot for him. It's going to give him a role, it seems like, with the Nets long term. So the Nets are confident in him as a 3-point shooter. I think that he's been streaky as a 3-point shooter, but the form is there. And I do think that there is reason to believe that that will hold up. And if that can hold up, I think he's been good enough defensively, and then you can have the passable 3-point shooting, and then you can also have part of the time where he's not doing the 3-point shooting, you can run him off of some zoom actions. You can have him run some, big pick and roll. I'd like to see him do some more stuff as a screener and be a short roll playmaker. So the 3-point shooting is going to be big for Danny, but I think that this was a nice bounce back performance by him after some recent struggles. So that was nice to see. But that's all I got for you guys on this bonus episode of Locked On Nets. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy my content, take a second, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you could do to engage is much appreciated. But I got part 2 of my Fan Take Friday, which was focused entirely on the Nets rookies, is going to be dropping Saturday night on YouTube. It's going to be dropping Sunday morning on audio platforms. So make sure you guys go check that out. And then the Nets are going to have another matchup with the Bulls in Chicago on Sunday. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.